Okay. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to Council Monday, February 24th, 2020. As always, before we get into the meeting, we ask everybody to move their mobile devices or phones into vibrate and silent mode. And I'll ask if there's any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening. Hearing none. I do have a motion here for tonight's meeting, moved by Councillor Valens, second by Councillor Lake, that we hereby accept the agenda for February 24th, 2020 meeting as circulated or amended. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of interest? Hearing none. I have a motion here that Council hereby adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held on Monday, February 10th, 2020, as well as the closed meeting of Council held on February 24th. Should have been that should be the February 10th as well, right? I'll just amend that. And the motion has got 24th. So I'll just amend it. So I'll get a mover and a second to amend that. Moved by Councillor Ingras, second by Councillor Valens. So the motion reads the 24th, but I'll amend it to the 10th on this. Is that okay with your mover and seconder? Okay, thank you. Any questions or errors or omissions of those minutes? Hearing none, call question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Right on down to student council reports. Councillor Hatton.
So last week, Marathon High School hosted the NSSSAA tournament for the seniors and juniors volleyball and basketball. And our senior girls volleyball players and the senior boys basketball players won NSSSAA and will be advancing to NWASA on Thursday and potentially Friday. And it's going to be running from 10 till 6, and I'm sure there will be a more detailed schedule posted on Facebook somewhere. And I believe the boys are in Atikokan. Okay. And the new Jack Talks program that is starting at Marathon High School, they're trying to recruit some students to join the program. So they're having a taco bout at Tuesday. So they're going to have tacos in the front foyer for any students who would like to come join the program, and they're going to try and work towards ending the stigma with mental health.
Good. Any questions of Councillor Hatton? Thank you for that report, and wish them all good luck in their sporting endeavors. Up next, we have a report on the 2020 draft budget status. Mr. Straczynski or Mr. Verbal, or both?
Certainly, I'll handle the report, Your Worship, and Mr. Verbal will have any details with respect to questions. Just before I start into the report, just a note for council that this is just a status update. It's been a month since we had our first public budget meeting. So tonight we're providing council with a bit of overview of where we're at in the process. We're not looking for a budget approval, but did want to provide council with the status report. So administration has been working on the 2020 municipal budget since October of 2019. On January 27th, 2020, a public budget meeting was held to review the budget requests and the full 2020 budget in draft form. Since the January 27th meeting, administration has worked diligently to revise and reduce the 2020 budget while ensuring that it meets council's vision, municipal corporate values, and our strategic plan focuses. On January 27th, the budget had a tax levy at $5.7 million. Administration has now reduced this amount to $4.98 million, a reduction of $784,000. This reduction does not include any elimination or reduction of municipal services. It has been achieved by strategically increasing revenues, finding cost savings and efficiencies, and revising the municipality's long-term capital budget. The purchase of a new fire truck is included in the 2020 draft budget. Administration is proposing that the net purchase price of $590,000 be deferred to 2021, but $355,000 of the purchase be levied in 2020 to help fund the replacement of the vehicle. Administration is requesting council's direction on this particular capital item. The financial implications are that the 2020 draft budget is calculated at $4.988 million, which amounts to an approximately generalized 2% residential tax increase for 2020. And this report is presented for council's information and direction tonight.
Great, thanks for that report. Any questions? Councillor Lake?
As you're looking for direction on the fire truck, I just want to clarify, in the meeting with the fire department and with Chuck, it looked like 12 and a half years was, for the 25-year life of a vehicle, we'd like to go every 12 and a half years, replacing one of the two trucks, so there's always kind of a newer truck and then one reaching the end of its life. This is roughly 12 and a half years on the life of that vehicle, right?
Yes. And again, at the January 27th meeting, the fire chief had said that they were starting to encounter issues with it, and so it was time to start, not just because we've hit a milestone with a date, but also it's time to replace it.
Councillor Lake?
And again, I guess from my perspective is, that's a massive capital item to purchase, certainly for a small municipality. And I recognize that means we will have to forego some other capital expenditures, but we better have a plan moving forward to address those. So I'd say that in terms of principles around budget, because essentially that's what an update asks for, is those are the two that I see that I think it's a good time to purchase the fire truck in terms of that replacement strategy, and there probably needs to be some reduction of, it means foregoing some things that probably we would want.
Anybody else? So it's an update. I've asked administration to look at this, and I sent a memo to council asking to really consider, because in the previous documentation that we received, there was a bunch of stuff that was shifted around to get to this various strategic number, which is great. But I think council should have the opportunity to discuss. If they'd like to discuss, if not tonight, I don't know if everybody's prepared, we can pass it on to a next meeting. Would that be good with administration's approval to look at just around the fire truck, because it's such a big ticket item, and some of the other capital items that have been either been moved around or taken out for this year's budget, because the reality is that maybe we keep deferring those things, we might be in a situation where we need to replace sooner or later then. So let's look at the whole big picture. Is that fair?
You know, and I think of something like the line painter that we've
Right.
talked about for years and years and years, and we keep deferring. We ought to at least have a plan to say, okay, if the fire truck bumps it, where does it fit? Because I think we've all agreed that an item like that makes sense long terms in terms of saving money eventually. But like you said, it doesn't make sense to keep deferring forever.
Right.
And if we're going to defer it forever, let's just not have it on the budget at all. So I'd be happy to debate it kind of in camera
Sure.
or
No, it would be a
sorry,
public meeting.
in a public meeting, or to do it tonight, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
So you-
Administration's thoughts?
Yeah, so what I would suggest is certainly, all valid points that council has made, hence the reason for the status update tonight. So, what I would propose is that we hold a public budget meeting on March the 9th at 6 PM ahead of our regular meeting of council. I do think an hour is likely enough to debate all of the items, and at that point, we can provide council with a wholesome review of items we've added to the budget in terms of purchases as well as revenues, those we've taken out, and how we've balanced the budget to get to a $4.98 million levy.
That's fair. So one question for council to mull over prior to that meeting, just to look at the 355 and this year's net budget, as well as deferral of the 590 in 2021. That 355, is that including the insurance fee that was retained from the previous vehicle?
No, the previous vehicle has been
that's
set
a
aside
separate-
because it wasn't anything to do with the
Okay.
fire truck. It's set aside for a replacement tanker.
Right, so that's a reserve account and capital for future purchases. This
Yes.
355 would be strictly levied out of this year's taxation.
Yes.
If we were to go with this scenario.
We would, yes, this is just
No,
an
no,
idea to
yeah,
come up with
sure.
the magic 2%. It was, if we take out the 590,
Right.
because we still don't know, we're still investigating how to access that machine, and it might not be here. And so, taking that large amount out gives us room to increase a levy, and so we would say we would start levying some money in 2020 of $355,000 just to purchase this fire truck in 2021.
Okay, so I just want to get clarity so for council's understanding of that, so when we discuss it in 9th, that's part of the overall picture, is that amount levied?
So it's about an 11th month lead for the fire truck to arrive. So realistically, we wouldn't be receiving it until the spring of 2021 if it was approved by council. Hence,
Right.
we would take ownership of it.
Okay. Okay, it's all good? Councilor Lake?
Just for clarity, is your sense that we would wait until a new fire chief was in place to make that final order, or do you think the process will go ahead regardless of whether a chief is in place or not?
Administration, if council approved, administration would move ahead immediately to purchase the truck and place the order. There has been a truck committee in place through the volunteer fire department as well as the previous chief, so they've come up with a design that they feel is the best fit for Marathon, so we're ready to go.
So when we last met in regards to the fire truck, I know we'll talk more about it on the 9th, whether that's an item that continues to move forward, is we asked if we're looking at a brokerage or a broker of some sort. Has that been investigated?
I did investigate it, and there theoretically isn't a brokerage. There are consultants
Okay.
that specialize in these types of projects that'll help you purchase the truck, ensure it has what you need, because they are custom builds, pardon me.
Right.
But there's no reduction in the amount for using
okay.
a broker, and you actually pay more to
Right.
hire a consultant. They just call themselves brokers.
Sure.
But we actually, through our participation in the AMO LAS program, we have access to some discounts because of our participation there. So we would look to purchase one of the trucks who LAS uses.
Good, good. Okay, so we'll reconvene the budget discussions round on the 9th, and then gives everybody an opportunity, if you have any questions prior to the 9th, come and talk to administration. You did see the previous reduction in expansion of the items that were in and outs, so those are the items that you should be revisiting and looking at and having a concrete understanding of that before we come back to the 9th, and whether you want to see them go forward or take a note. Okay? Thanks for your time, appreciate that. So there's no motion, that was just for information. Up next, we have a report on T-Bay Tower Agreement. Mr. Sorchinski.
So T-Bay Tel has been leasing municipal property in the industrial park since 2004 to locate a communications tower. The current lease with respect to this property is set to expire in July of this year. T-Bay Tel has issued a request to the municipality to extend the lease for the current tower land location. Key terms contained within the new lease are a 5-year term, July the 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2025. An extension option of 3 additional 5-year terms. The town named as an additional insured in the amount of $5 million in liability and property insurance. And the utilities required for the operation of the tower are the sole expense of the tenant, and in this case, it's T-Bay Tel. So the lease agreement will generate $6,000 in revenues per year for the 5-year term, which amounts to $30,000 in total. Your administration recommends that bylaw 1972 be approved, authorizing the land lease agreement between the town of Marathon and T-Bay Tel for communications tower placement be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the municipality.
Great, thanks for that report. I do have a motion that council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on T-Bay Tower Agreement, and that the appropriate bylaw be adopted approving the land lease agreement between the town of Marathon and T-Bay Tel for the communications tower placement in the town of Marathon Industrial Park. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the town. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Valens. Questions? Councilor Lake?
Yeah, the question sort of generally just around our land leases. So given the state of construction in the community and the maybe the more demand for land right now, we've had pretty much a standard $5,000-6,000 fee for land. Would we be looking to charge more as the value goes up, because there is some demand now on land in the community? I just don't know if there's more revenue to be had there.
Yeah, so it's a very good question, and in this particular case, I would say it's fair market value because of the parcel they're actually utilizing in the industrial park. Would not be a piece of property we would develop, or lease for any other purpose than this. But one of the items that administration does have contained within the 2020 budget is to complete evaluation on some of our vacant properties. More so with respect to the properties we acquired through the Marathon pulp sale. Because the last time we had that done, I believe, was in 2013, and that's where we get our $5,000 to $6,000 number per acre from. But you are correct, there is a demand with all the construction activity, so we want to ensure those values are current. So it is our plan to have that done this year.
Anybody else? I had a question in regards to the 3 additional 5-year terms. So is this something that does not have to come back to council, or is this, do you, as administration between the clerk and the mayor, can just sign off on the next 3 terms?
It does have to come back to council.
Still, each term?
Correct.
Okay, just the wording there.
They wanted, the reason they wanted to include it is that if there was an issue with us looking at a renewal, they wanted to know now before at the end of the 5-year term.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so mover and seconder was called a question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Up next, we have a report on 2019 DWQMS compliance report. Good evening, Mr. Hiska.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I'm presenting the 2019 compliance report for the Drinking Water Quality Management System. So the DWQMS requires several mandatory audits and reviews to be undertaken annually and communicated to the owner of the system, in this case, council. The following documents are submitted to council for information. DWQMS Management Review, the minutes from the meeting on June 26th. The Infrastructure Review, minutes of October 3rd meeting, and the Internal Audit Report 2019. Following are the highlights from the information submitted. Management Review. The review is intended to evaluate the continuing suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of the Town of Marathon DWQMS and distribution system. The DWQMS Management Review Committee concluded that based on the information presented, the Marathon Operations Plan facilitates our ability to consistently deliver drinking water that meets applicable regulatory requirements and enhances consumer protection. Mayor Dumas represented council on the committee. The Infrastructure Review. Maintenance programs were discussed, and our current high level of preventative maintenance will be continued. 2020 draft budget requests were analyzed for their relevance to this review, and all planned maintenance will be accounted for at the current budget level. All action items from the meeting have since been completed as scheduled. The internal audit was completed May 13 and 14 of 2019, and no corrective actions were required. An external verification audit was conducted September 30th, and only one corrective action, a signature page, was identified and has since been corrected. The cycle of audits and reviews will continue as scheduled in 2020. Full scope accreditation was originally achieved October 1 of 2013 and renewed based on this comprehensive verification audit. The current QMS certification will remain valid until October 4 of 2021.
Good, thanks for your report. I do have a motion. No, I don't have a motion, sir. Is it open for questions in regards to that report? Hearing none? I like how we are the owners of this facility, so it's really pertinent on council to understand their role in this and understanding the responsibilities that's put back on council as the owner. I've asked council in the past if they were interested in doing a tour of all the facilities. Has everybody on this council done those tours?
I don't believe everyone has.
So I think it would be an opportunity, if who hasn't done a tour, to go out with our manager and take a little tour of our facilities so you have a better understanding of what we are operating. It's a pretty amazing system that we have for a small community, so it's just good for your own knowledge to understand what we're operating, and we are the owner of the facility, so it's nice to understand what you're owning. Fair enough?
Sure, I'd invite all of council to
Again, sure. It'd be
set
nice.
up meeting times.
Yeah.
Love to go a second time.
Maybe you could throw some dates out, maybe for a morning, we can get together sometime in the near future to go do a visit, just to get, I wouldn't mind going again. It's been a while since I've been to the pump houses and the
Sure.
facilities. So,
We could do wastewater system as well
Sure.
at the same time.
yeah, do a couple hours in the morning sometime, if everybody's available. Does that work for you, Councilor Lake? Mornings, no? Well, let us know. I mean, it doesn't even have to be right away. Could be,
We've done that as well, yeah.
yeah, class is not a bad idea. Yeah. That could work too. But anyway, you can work on some that we can maybe coordinate some dates that work for council, just to do an update.
Sure.
Everybody's good with that? Good, thanks, appreciate that. Okay, no other questions? Thanks a lot, Mr. Trishka. Okay, approve check run in regards to the following checks approved for payment. Accounts payable in the amount of $867,057.77, and payroll in the amount of $190,761.37. Moved by Councilor Jingara, second by Councilor Valens. Any questions on the check run and accounts payable? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. So we got Councilor Valens going to give us an update in regards to the Thunder Bay District Health Youth Board meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll keep it short and simple. Wednesday, February 19th, we had our board meeting for the Thunder Bay District Health Unit, and I think the standout presentation from this meeting and topics discussed were, everyone is probably well aware of the DineWise program that the Thunder Bay District Health Unit puts out where they go around grading restaurants to make sure they're in compliance with food management, cooking, all that. So now, early spring 2020, they're going to be rolling out the BodyWise program, which is the exact same, parallels the DineWise program, but they're going to be rolling it out in tattoo parlors, hairdressing salons, all that kind of stuff. So expect it's the exact same. Like I said, it mirrors, the grading's the same. They're going to be using the posters this time are landscape instead of portrait, or vice versa, but still the A, B, C, D grading. So yeah, expect that to be rolled out within the next few months.
Any questions of Councillor Valens? I do. So if you're a restaurateur or a body shop of whatever sort, tattoo, hairdressing and all that, do you have to post the signs in your facility?
So that was actually asked at the meeting. So short answer, yes.
Okay.
Because the Thunder Bay District Health Unit has been working with all of these services for the last few years. So there's really been a large component of education around it and the way they're being graded and the way like the service providers, entrepreneurs, all that are being well educated as to how they're being graded, the matrix that they're using and stuff like that, and the education piece around the sanitization of all the equipment and the risk to the public, right? So, yes.
So I guess my question is, and you can bring back to the health board, is that if store A or, you know, body shop B doesn't provide a cleanliness facility or has a D rating, and does the health unit come in then and either shut them down, or what's the consequences of not providing?
So they do have the ability to.
Okay.
So it's graded on, from my understanding, you start at 100 and then they go around, start examining the workspace, the environment, and then from there they deduct you critical, I believe it's critical errors, so on, critical infractions, major infractions, and minor infractions. And so from there, it's not on here, but after a certain amount of points, that's where you start falling on the grades. At a grade D, they have to come back more often to make sure you're in compliant, and your grade can grow from there.
Okay.
But yeah, anything, a C, a D, anything that's under standard, through, don't quote me on the act that they're following, but through legislation, they have the right that they could close down.
Well, when the whole idea, I think, is behind the public safety, right? And making sure that, you know, a restaurateur or a body shop of whatever sorts is operating a cleanliness facility where you're not gonna get potential, you know, impact of illness, you know?
Yeah, so here C and D, they'll re-inspect per month for 3 months. So
Okay,
once a month
okay.
for 3 months.
Okay, good,
And then from there, again, you can grow and improve your grade if you are.
great.
So
That's good. I think it's good for the public as well.
yeah, it's good for the education piece, right? And the awareness, so.
Good, thanks. Anything else, Councillor Valens? No? Hearing none? Okay, Councillor Lace, gonna give us a verbal update on the District Social Service Administration Board.
Thank you, Worship. So we met 2 Thursdays ago for DSAB, and sort of the two big topics were one that was more of a Thunder Bay focus, and then one that kind of was more for us. The big talk was around human trafficking and some of the illicit activities that happened in public housing. So as a DSAB, we have been working to put in some eviction processes that are fair to tenants, but also allow the organization to make sure that people that are doing things that are against the law and degrading the whole system can be removed. It's remarkable when they start showing photos of what happens in some of those units. And lots of times it's folks that let in a friend or a stranger, and all of a sudden their apartment is a drug den or a prostitution ring den. And so it's working to ensure that those elements are removed from public housing. So we had quite an interesting presentation around what is in Thunder Bay, and some of the stuff that's quite shocking about public housing at times. So that was good. The other thing that related more to us was there was some funding cuts that affected especially the Community Collective. A fund that they accessed was no longer there. So we passed the budget that allowed for the community homeless prevention funds to be released. So our hope is that the Community Collective will be able to tap into that source to continue their work. So My sense is it's going to be a positive outcome, but that was an important piece that we passed. Again, in Thunder Bay, the homelessness looks different. They have about 300 to 400 people living on the streets at any particular time. In Marathon, there is a homelessness problem, but it doesn't look the same. It's people couch surfing. It's people permanent or temporarily displaced. So there are some funds for programs helping those folks. So those are the two kind of key things we looked at DSAB this month.
Good, thanks for your report. Any questions, Council Lake? I had a couple, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Part of our police services board in our Zoom meeting, a lot of the talk about was the buying of units, and literally buying of units, meaning is just they don't buy it. They come in and they ask the tenant to rent their place for a day to sell drugs or do the other illegal activities to track the human trafficking trade. So they pay an individual, whether it's in a social housing project or not, like $500 a day. Well, that's pretty hard money to resist if you're on assistance of some sort. So that's a real problem, and it's becoming more of a problem, and these people who are in this business know that. So that's what's happening a lot. Any more in regards to living wages program? Was there any discussion in your budgets? That's completely gone.
There's been, I think, as far as the provincial government gone, that is a done deal.
Done, okay.
That's the DSAB. The presentation we had was that there was no
No
thought of bringing
appetite,
it
no
back. No
appetite
appetite
for
from
that.
the government right now.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? Thanks for the report. Okay, up next we have a bylaw presentation in regards to the cell site lease. Mr. Sostinski.
Well, just a
There's no
bylaw
highlight,
for
just-
passing, your worship.
That's it?
Yep.
No highlight in that? Okay.
Nope.
So, the 1972 being a bylaw to enter into the cell site lease agreement for T-Bay Tel for installation of the communication tower at the Marathon Industrial Park. We read first, second time is 24th day of February 2020. Moved by Councilor Lake, second by Councilor Zingra. Any questions? Hearing none, I call a question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And of course, the bylaw number is 1972 to be read a third time and finally passed this 24th day of February 2020. Moved by Councilor Valens, second by Councilor Lake. Any questions of that? Third reading. Hearing none, call a question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And prior to adjournment, there's not much for announcements. Just the only thing that we got coming up is prior to our next council meeting is the time and clocks going ahead. And as always, that time of the year, it's a little earlier this year, I believe, but that time of the year we move our clocks ahead, but we also address our smoke detectors and our CO detectors in our home and check the batteries and make sure they're working properly. That will be on Sunday, March the 8th. Other than that, I think that's about it. Thank you. I do have a motion here to adjourn at the hour of 7:29 p.m. Thank you and good night. Moved by Councilor Valens, second by Councilor Lake. Perfect. Thanks.